Okay, this video is I'm getting divorced, and I'm kind of surprised by this, but at the same time, I'm not surprised by it. I'll tell you the backstory of it. It'll all make sense here in a moment. Sort of like the happiest times of my life were when I was in senior year in high school. I was in love with this girl. We were together about 9 years. I almost married her, but it's a long story. Musicians and doctors don't exactly go together that well because musicians want to stay out at night performing in shows, go to the after party. Doctors want to get up early in the morning, especially initially I was, a surgeon, okay? So anyways, then happiest times was when I first got married with my wife, and I did love her. I was very happy the first 6 years or so of our marriage. She was an incredibly beautiful doctor. It was a lot of fun having the little kids. We had 3 kids pretty quick together. And she said she wanted the same thing as me, a big, happy family. But then after our 3rd kid, she decided to tie her tubes, even though I told her I didn't want her to. And she insisted on doing it, said it was her uterus. I'm like, well, it's in a sense partly mine too, because it's my only opportunity to have kids. I wanted more kids, and I kind of stopped loving her after that because it was nasty. It wasn't like a reasonable thing, in my opinion. I stayed with her for the sake of the kids. I pretty much make emotional commitments to the people that are important to me, which in my life, the most important people were my mother, and I did the best I could for her. I just didn't know enough how to treat cancer when I was young, and she died eventually from that. And then, my kids. So I figured I would stay with my wife through thick and thin, even though I was not happy with the situation anymore. I wanted more kids. Okay, when I was a total workaholic, especially when I was an imaging-guided surgeon in private practice, I'd leave the house 6:30 in the morning, come home at 8:30 at night, and I made a lot of money, so that was good. I was trying to figure out, because I always had this intense desire to become a great doctor. I knew I was super smart. I knew I was really talented. I was great at all the procedures and everything else. So I knew I should do something great, and I sort of wanted to redeem myself because one of the biggest regrets of my life was that I wasn't an All-American in wrestling. I had the talent to be a national champion, but I had injuries, and I kept getting repeatedly injured, so that sort of burned inside me, that failure I had at wrestling because I was stupid and I came back too soon. And I blamed it on myself, and I was like, well, someday I'm going to be a great doctor and a great scientist, and I'll make up for it in some way for having screwed up my athletic career. So anyways, I always had incredible energy and motivation. And then what happened was I got a little bit fat. I did try to do 2 fellowships at once. I was going to become an endovascular imaging-guided brain surgeon, and I decided not to do that because neurosurgery's taken it over, but I also authored a textbook that year, and so I got fat, up to 220 pounds, which is fat for me. Okay, I'm 5'9" in height. I've got a big frame. I'm real muscular, but still, that was fat, 220 pounds. So it was a little bit difficult to lose the weight at first, so I decided to buy a new house where I could exercise a lot more. I bought a magnificent house, and I helped design parts of it where there was a backyard tennis court, a big in-ground pool, a full-length basketball court outside. The yard was about 1 acre, animal enclosure, jungle gym for the kids. It was an awesome yard, We had chickens out there. We had roosters. We had turtles. We had rabbits, all this stuff. It was like a farm. It was a great situation. I became a lacto-vegetarian and then a starch vegan. I lost all the weight about 20 years ago. The house had a weightlifting gym. I had a wrestling mat. I converted a bedroom into a racquetball court. This was all great, but it was pissing off my wife. If she had to have a dream, I would say it would be to be like Martha Stewart. And she sort of came on to America at the time when the American dream was a real thing. Doctors used to make 4 times as much money. And she sort of felt that, I was a bit of a barbarian as a husband in the sense that she wanted an elegant, beautiful house like Martha Stewart. And here I was converting the bedroom into a basketball court, and the whole outside and basement was all exercise facility. She's like, this is not an effing gymnasium. This is a house. How can I have people over when you're doing all this stuff? Well, actually, it didn't get as bad initially. It got pretty bad when I came home from work one day. I think my kid was going into 7th grade, and he says, Dad, you're a bad father. And I say, why do you say that, buddy? And he said, because you don't help me. The other boys' fathers help them. One boy, his dad's a coach of the basketball team. Another boy, his dad practices with them. And he says, you don't help me practice. And we did have a basketball court in the backyard, so I gave him that. But still, I felt bad, and I knew he had a point. He said, you just work all the time. I knew he was right. I was working a lot. So I decided to do something nice for the kid. I had a friend who was a carpenter. We boarded up the windows in the living room, which had a nice wooden floor. It had a really high ceiling. It was a big room. We weren't using it for anything but storage at that time. And of course, I didn't ask the wife first because I knew she wouldn't have allowed it. And I converted the indoor living room into a basketball court. I moved in a portable basketball hoop. It was great. The kid loved it. He did great. He became one of the stars of the team. The little kids would ride tricycles around the house. There was a circular place to ride their tricycles. All the neighborhood kids wanted to come over. Friends and family all wanted to come over. Everybody wanted to see our house. It was a cool house. Indoor basketball court and all this other stuff. And the animals in the backyard and stuff. It was great. Everybody loved it. We were really happy. Our house was the center of attention. All the kids' friends wanted to come to our house. I was kind of like, what more could you ask for? It was a dream house. I loved it. I was very happy with the situation. But it drove my wife crazy. She went apeshit bananas. And the basketball court was the final straw. She said, you're bouncing the basketball all day long. It's driving her crazy. We're breaking the foundation of the house. We're ruining the property value. You know, I'm an idiot. I'm an autistic jerk. Whenever she wanted to be mad at me, she'd call me an autistic jerk. And I don't think I'm autistic at all, by the way. That's just kind of a joke. Okay, but she would say I'm autistic because it was a way to win an argument. If an argument was based on logic, 2 + 2 = 4, she would never ever win any argument against me. But to call me autistic and shift the blame, she wins a lot of arguments, most of them, in fact. All right, so anyways, the wife got pissed off and she bought a new house. And she gave me an ultimatum. Either come with her to live in the new house or get divorced. And, I had heard and seen lots of kids be very messed up by their parents getting a divorce. So I figured, kids were the most important thing to me. I figured I got to do right by the kids. I would go with her to the new house, but I really didn't want to. I really, really, really didn't want to. But I felt, in life, you don't get to do what you want a lot of times, and the kids are most important. I'm going with her to the new house. And I was sad about it. It broke my heart to leave that old house. I love that old house. It was the best house you could ever imagine. And so I got to the new house, and it's like a total female house, and it's kind of a stupid house. There's like nowhere to exercise. It looks nice on a holiday. And my wife's great at decorating stuff. Like, let's say it's a Christmas holiday. She'll make the place look magnificent. It could be on the cover of Better Homes and Gardens, okay? But other than that, it's kind of a crappy, stupid house, and it's full of dog poop most of the time. And so something good, though, came out of it. Because it was my wife's house, it was her job to manage it. The other house had been my house, so I had to pay all the bills and manage every little detail, make sure the lawn was done, the pool was done, everything else. But now, having her take care of this new house, it freed me up a lot of time. Plus, I had switched from primarily being an imaging-guided surgeon, interventional radiologist, to being primarily a neuroradiologist. So I had a lot less call. I used to be on call every day, either call or backup call. And now I wasn't, okay? And I had a lot more time. And I had gradually started reading and studying again biochemistry, molecular biology and stuff. And I'm like, holy crap, all of the textbooks are wrong. And this nutritional stuff is fascinating. They're curing hypertension, diabetes, and obesity and all these other problems. And this McDougall guy is a genius. And I started reading about Burkitt and all these other ones. I'm like, wow, this is fascinating. Okay, and I knew I had a great background for that. I had a very unique background. I came from being heavily into pathology, almost went into pathology, almost was a biochemist. So I was really solid on the complex, difficult stuff that most people don't know. Okay, like I had a medical school class, 333 students. I won the award as best student in the class in pathology. If they offered one in biochemistry, I would have been the best in biochemistry as well. Okay, and probably a lot of other subjects too. But I'm just saying is I knew I had the perfect background to really figure out complex disease and complex nutrition, biochemistry, toxicology, all of this stuff. And I just enjoyed it more and more the more I studied it, but there was no money in it. So anyways, getting back to the wife and the kids. What would happen is, I was working most of the time, so I would try to get something started with the kids. And I'm very philosophical about education because I believe that works best. Like the time I spent with my father when I was young had a very positive influence on me. So I would teach my kids things. Like let's say we remember Steve Irwin, the crocodile guy, Crocodile Dundee-like guy from TV show. Okay, he was cool, so I would take my kids to the zoo. We'd go see the alligators, learn how to photograph the alligators. Then I gave him art classes for drawing, and he, had a teacher. He learned how to draw really well, and I took him all around to find the best art teacher, and we finally figured that out. And the kids loved it. They were great at drawing. They were great at all this stuff. I told them how to make a PowerPoint presentation for school, and I thought it was something beautiful. The kid was real happy. He loved Steve Irwin and all this stuff, and he loved everything related to that. So anyways, my wife was all like, you're freaking crazy. A fourth grade kid don't need to know how to use PowerPoint. And this art is bullshit. Artists are all poor. They all end up homeless, in New York City, bohemians, or homos. This is stupid. You and your stupid ideas of art. You're so autistic. You're crazy. And I'm like, you know what, sweetheart? I'm teaching the kid how to get good at something. When a kid gets good at one thing, also when a kid learns how to create something beautiful, they enjoy it and they want to do it more, and they just keep on developing their skills. And whatever they do in life, they can take this art, this drawing, this photography, these other skills, and connect them all together. They all go together. Okay, and I was also trying to teach the kid how to speak Spanish and read in Spanish, and he's very good at it because all my kids are fluent in Polish. My wife's from Poland, okay? So I wanted them to be trilingual. So anyways, what I'm trying to say is she would squash whatever I was trying to get going with the kids. Tell them art is bullshit, art is stupid, nature studying is stupid. She just wanted them to get good grades, become doctors, and make money, okay? A very, what I would call a materialistic, simplistic way of looking at life. And people might say I overdo it with all my philosophical stuff, but the reason I am that way is because I know this philosophical stuff and religious stuff, it's what leads to greatness, okay? If you just want to get by, fine, you don't need it. But if you want to get great at something, all of it really helps. So anyways, I would say like my definition of what is good is after I study a topic, I'll analyze it in, a bunch of different ways, and I'll decide what's the best way. What's my informed decision. Whereas my wife's decision about what is good is basically what's normal. Like a typical thing we would disagree on was buying kids a cell phone. I'd be like, no, cell phones are stupid. All the kids will care about is social life with their friends. They're not going to use their brains anymore. They're not going to read books anymore. I think it's a bad idea. I grew up without a cell phone. I was perfectly fine. And she's like, every kid has a cell phone. The kid has to have a cell phone. And I'm not home. She'll just buy him a cell phone. So she would always overrule me on stuff, and that would piss me off because I would think that I was a much better judge of what's good for the kids in an intellectual academic sense than she was. I'm 1,000 times better student than she is. Okay, so but she would always have the power in the end. The woman controls the family. It's just pretty much how it is. The man's off working most of the time. That's how it was. And she kept getting fatter and fatter. And she had used to been a beautiful woman. I mean, she was beyond beautiful. She was prettier than all the nurses. She was the prettiest woman in the whole hospital. And I was happy, too, to have this incredibly beautiful doctor, like a perfect 10 in beauty, okay? She looked like a combination of Anita Nazario and Marilyn Monroe. Sort of like, if you could put those two together, that's what she looked like. Okay, so anyways, now she's getting fatter and fatter and fatter, and she won't change her diet. She won't eat the plant foods or eat a little bit of them, making me make a smoothie, and the thing's all loud. I tell her she's going to go deaf. And she just would not stop eating fried meat all the time. And that pissed me off. She got fatter and fatter. I was disgusted by it. And I stopped sleeping in the same bedroom with her. I stopped having sex with her 10 years ago. I haven't slept with her in 10 years. That's a long time. And you would say, well, why do I stay with her? And it's like, well, it's because of the kids. I mean, when you're married with kids, the kids become the most important thing. When you're single, you yourself are the most important thing in your life. But when you're married with kids, the kids are the most important thing in life. And again, I had seen some very, very bad outcomes on divorced parents. So I figured, these kids didn't ask to be brought in the world. It was my decision to bring them into the world, so I will do right by them. So that's why I stayed with her. Because a lot of people say, why would you stay with her? Why would you stay in such a type of marriage? And I wasn't happy with it, but at the same time, I figured, I'm old. A lot of geniuses, when they're old, they like to write. And, this YouTube channel was kind of fun. I knew they're always going to shadow ban me. That's, that goes without saying. But I'll still have fun with it. I'll still make it something good. I'll write a book, and, I got to do something. I might as well do that. Like I said, people say you and your wife. I was surprised because, I never talk to her. We talk like once a month. Here's our conversation. I joke that it's like she comes after me like Bigfoot and she says, where's my check? And I usually say, I'll write it tomorrow. Then she says, I need it today. So I usually write it for her that day, sometimes the next day. But the point is, I have almost zero interaction with her. I give her tons of money. I've given her many millions of dollars over the years, okay? It's not like I'm some cheap husband. Believe me, I wish I was married to myself. If I was married to myself, I could retire. So, anyways, I like her being a landlord because, again, it frees me up to write and to do the YouTube channel, which I think is a good use of my time at this age of my life. I'm 60 years old. Now, the old house was mine, like I said, so I managed it. The new house was hers, okay. And then I figured out you only got time for about two things in your life. Basically, working as a conventional doctor takes a lot of my time. I work about 50 hours a week, plus the commuting. It comes out to, about 70 hours a week? That's a lot of time. And then as a hobby, I just got enough time to write these books. I've written like around 20 books and make a YouTube channel. I've made a couple thousand videos, over 2,000 videos with it. Some of them, of course, are reruns. And I like doing that, even though I know it's probably never going to go anywhere. I know it's a good thing. I believe I'm probably one of the best doctors, if not the best one on the whole internet, because most of the famous doctors, you guys don't recognize it. Most of the public doesn't understand, but they're bullshitting you. They're bullshitting you on some major, major issues. So I feel like it's useful for me to continue doing this. And I go into a lot more complexity. Most of them are just geared at talking to patients so they can sell something or recruit patients for their clinic, whereas I'm interested in really understanding things, which leads to a higher level of complexity. Basically, I'm trying to talk to the really smart doctors, whereas they're trying to talk to, an intelligent layperson, so to speak, I would say is about an approximate way to gauge what tends to be going on with the internet nutrition experts making videos. Okay, so basically you only got time, typically it would seem, for about two things. And that's it for me, is conventional doctor making this YouTube channel stuff. And then you say, well, why not get a mistress? Because a lot of people told me I could get a mistress. My wife actually told me years ago I could get a girlfriend if I wanted, okay? And, she had a pretty good deal too. A fat woman who's no longer attractive, having a husband who supports her. It's kind of like that Michael Savage, he's like a radio host guy. He used to joke that a lot of these Eastern European women, they're very pretty when they're young, but by the time they're in their 40s, they look like Stalin's housekeeper, okay? And that's kind of like what happened to my wife. So, there was like zero attraction between me. We have no conversation, nothing, okay? Except the kids, all right? So anyways, I thought about having a mistress, but I don't know any available women. And I'm not, you can't go out with a woman from your job, okay? That's like unthinkable. There's too much problems involved in that. So the only women I know are the ones I see at work, and that's just not a doable thing. I don't know any other women. I heard these dating apps are really bad and you don't even know who you're talking to. So I kind of figured, I guess I'm done with that. A lot of, smart men just sort of focused on their academic career and writing and teaching when they got older. So I figured, well, I'll do that. I've never cheated on my wife. So anyways, but now she wants a divorce. She's pissed off at me. I think she has a new boyfriend, okay, because it's bizarre. I mean, I can't believe any self-respecting man would take her, but you never know. I bet you got an old guy who's just glad to have a woman. I think that's what's going on. There's zero chance of reconciliation. I don't want to reconcile with her. I don't want her, okay? And it's almost like I'm finally free. My main concern, though, now is I got to find a place to live. I live in the Chicago area. So I think I'll stay here for a while. In the future, if I go anywhere, I would probably go to Florida. But anyways, as far as women go, I could see it going one of four ways. Number one, I could stay single and avoid the time sink of having a woman. I've gotten used to that for the last 10 years, essentially not having a woman. So maybe I'll do that. On the other hand, maybe I'll get a maid, because I used to like it. My wife was a good cook. She was a good cook. She cleans up the house. She cleans up after the dog. Kind of like a combination of a maid, a cook, and a landlord, which is valuable. I like having that. I don't want to waste my time doing anything I don't have to do. I could get a younger woman, like McDougal would talk about those Filipino laborers when they would retire at 65, go back, get a young bride, have a kid. And I wanted more kids. Why shouldn't I have more kids, But, would I do that? I don't know. Probably a woman about 40 to 45 years of age and fall in love and do all that again. That could be fun, but, it's a lot of work too. I could get a woman who's a little bit older, 45 to 55 maybe, and who's fun to talk to. So that would have to be like a real interesting, kind of fun, intelligent, vivacious woman. And I could fall in love with her maybe. That's one possibility. I could also get a wealthy widow. I could be like a trophy husband, like with a wealthy widow, and then she could pay most of the bills. I would still do some work. Of course, I'd do some research, some writing, some teaching, some telehealth, and that kind of stuff. Maybe moonlight as a doc, clinical doc, conventional medicine. I don't know. But I would want more time because what I really like to do is, refine my knowledge of all this health, nutrition, toxicology stuff. Because not to brag, but I think I'm the best in the world at it. And I just need more time. I've done everything I've done. You see here, all these 20 books and all these over 2,000 videos. I did that while working full-time, 70 hours a week. I'm capable of much, much more intelligent work if I had the time to read more, okay? So anyways, that's where things are at. It looks like I'm getting divorced.